Jeremiah Cole's diner was days away from being seized. Bills piled high, neighbors mocked him, and still he kept feeding strangers who walked through his door. One night, he gave his very last plate of food to a trembling homeless man, ignoring whispers that kindness was the reason he was broke. But when officers arrived to shut his diner down, black SUVs pulled up outside, and the same man everyone thought was a nobody stepped out, dressed in a suit that made the whole street go silent. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Jeremiah Cole's diner looked like a place time had almost forgotten. A chipped neon sign buzzed weakly over the door, fighting against the drizzle of rain that had soaked the streets all afternoon. Inside, the smell of fried onions and strong coffee clung to the air, mixing with the faint dampness that always slipped in when the door opened. The booths were empty, just cracked red vinyl seats, a few crumbs left behind from the morning's customers, and the low hum of an ancient refrigerator in the back. Jeremiah stood behind the counter, shoulders slightly slumped, wiping down the same spot with a rag that had long since lost its color. He wasn't polishing for cleanliness anymore. He was polishing to think, to distract himself from the stack of bills in the office drawer he hadn't opened in 2 days. People said he was too generous for his own good, and maybe he was. Every evening, someone hungry wandered in, sometimes an old woman, sometimes kids with hollow eyes, sometimes men whose shoes were falling apart at the seams. Jeremiah never turned them away. He'd slide a plate across the counter, no questions asked. It wasn't charity to him. It was survival. If I can cook, they can eat, he always muttered under his breath. That night, the bell over the door jingled softly. A figure stepped inside, thin, soaked, his coat hanging like a second skin. The man's beard was patchy, his eyes sunk deep, and his hands trembled as if the cold had crept all the way into his bones. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. He gestured toward the nearest booth. "Sit down, brother. You're freezing." The man didn't answer, just shuffled forward. He smelled faintly of rainwater and the kind of exhaustion that clung after too many nights on concrete sidewalks. Jeremiah poured him a mug of hot coffee, set down a steaming bowl of chicken soup, and slid over a couple of painkillers from the jar he kept near the register. From the corner booth, 2 locals whispered loud enough for Jeremiah to hear. "See, that's why he's broke," one muttered, "giving away food to every stray that walks in." The other snorted, "He'll lose this place before winter's done." Jeremiah's jaw tightened. He caught their reflection in the chrome of the coffee machine, but didn't turn around. He wasn't about to defend himself. What was the point? Let them think he was foolish. Instead, he focused on the man in front of him. The stranger sipped slowly, watching Jeremiah with a strange stillness, like he was studying more than just the food. Every movement of Jeremiah's hand, the way he tucked a rag into his apron, the way he leaned forward with concern, was met with an intent gaze, and though Jeremiah didn't know it, that gaze carried more weight than the gossip at the booth ever could. The rain outside tapped harder against the window. Jeremiah rubbed his tired eyes, unaware that the night had just written the first line of a chapter that would change his life forever. Morning light spilled through the diner's fogged windows, streaked with dust where Jeremiah hadn't found time to wipe. The tables sat mostly empty, just a couple of regulars sipping coffee, their voices carrying louder than they probably realized. "Poor man's too soft," one said, stirring sugar into his cup. "Soft," the other scoffed. "It's stupidity. You don't give away food when you can't even pay rent." Both of them chuckled, shaking their heads, as if Jeremiah were nothing more than a cautionary tale playing out in real time. Jeremiah pretended not to hear. He moved behind the counter with deliberate calm, refilling the salt shakers, adjusting napkin holders, anything to keep his hands busy. His apron was frayed at the edges, and a thin crease of sweat sat on his brow despite the chill of the morning. But he felt their words. They weighed heavier than the stack of overdue invoices sitting in his office drawer. By mid-afternoon, the stranger returned. Same ragged coat, same quiet steps. Jeremiah looked up from the grill and nodded toward a booth without hesitation. The man lowered himself onto the seat, his movements slow, like his body resisted every bend. "You again," Jeremiah said softly, setting a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. "Eat. No arguments." The man's hand shook slightly as he picked up the fork. He didn't speak, not much anyway, but his eyes never left Jeremiah. They followed him as he wiped down counters, greeted the rare customer, and checked the old clock above the door, as if time itself were moving too fast for him to catch up. Word around the neighborhood spread quickly. Jeremiah's generosity wasn't seen as noble anymore. It was seen as weakness. Suppliers started to cut him off. One delivery truck never showed, and when he called, the answer was curt. "Pay what you owe first." That evening, when Jeremiah stepped outside to toss the trash, two neighbors leaned against the lamppost. "Man's drowning himself," one muttered. "Don't feel sorry for him," the other replied. "He chose this life. You can't feed everyone." Jeremiah paused, trash bag in hand, their words echoing in his head. For a flicker of a moment, he wondered if they were right. But then he pictured the faces of the people he'd served, the tired mothers, the hungry children, the silent man inside eating as though it was the first real meal in days, and the doubt passed like a shadow. Inside, the diner lights buzzed faintly. Jeremiah leaned on the counter, exhaustion etched into the lines of his face. He didn't see it, but the stranger's eyes softened, as though he recognized something in Jeremiah's weariness, something rare. The whispers kept growing outside, but Jeremiah kept showing up each day, and the man kept coming back, always silent, always watching. The weeks stretched on like a rope about to snap. By Tuesday, Jeremiah was serving meals out of ingredients he scraped together from whatever was left in his pantry. A half bag of rice, a few onions, a crate of bruised tomatoes he bought cheap from a vendor who felt sorry for him. He stirred pots with a heavy hand, hiding the tightness in his chest every time he thought about the ledger in his drawer. On Thursday morning, the mail arrived, a thick envelope, stamped in bold red letters. Jeremiah sat at the counter, thumb tracing the edge of the seal,